Thank you so much for joining me. I know that you were released only about 5 days ago,
Correct.
and I can't imagine what these last several days, or really month, has been like for you. So I'll begin with just how are you holding up? What have you been going through?
It hasn't been easy. It hasn't been easy because even when I'm back at home and I'm sleeping, I still feel like, it's not real, that I'm still in there. But with my family and through the generous help of Todd and his team of people, it's facilitated my coming back out into civilization, because in there it's not a civil, there's no rhyme or reason to their schedule. It's exhausting.
You've been out for 5 days. Have you been able to see your son, reconnect with him, talk to him?
I have been able to FaceTime him, but I have not been able to do what I had envisioned, which was go and surprise him and give him a hug and tell him that all of these things that they're saying about me on the media, I'm not sure if he's been allowed to watch television or not, that I'm a criminal and that I'm all of these other ludicrous things that they're alleging that I am. I don't know how any parent could sleep at night knowing that their son is enduring all of these, harsh feelings.
How is it that you haven't seen him? What happened?
So Michael's still in school, and vacation for Christmas is coming up, so I understand that school is very important, but I had planned to see him because it was a half day on that Thursday, and I called his father several times and he just didn't answer me. He said that they were going to get a haircut and then he was going to drive him down. So I had to check in with immigration and the attorneys before I could drive anywhere, because I was put on a GPS system, which was just another ridiculous obstacle I had to overcome, because I was afraid to cross state lines and be incarcerated all over again. So, they set you free, but you're still, having to jump through all these hoops and make sure that you're not breaking any laws that they don't even inform you about. They're kind of setting you up for failure in a sense.
Todd, have you ever seen a case like this?
No, it's just absolutely unfounded what they do. Like, we have the bond hearing on Monday, and literally I have one of their own go against them. Our managing attorney worked at DHS for 7 years, Jason Thomas. So we just go through chapter and verse how this narrative is completely false, calling her a criminal illegal alien. They say that about everyone. Everyone's a criminal illegal alien or an illegal alien, and then when you peel back the onion, it's proved false every time. Every one of these cases we've had in the last months, same narrative, criminal illegal alien. They're claiming she's a criminal, yet she's never been arrested for anything other than this illegal, unconstitutional arrest on November the 12th. They claim it's a crime, and what it is when she was 16 years old, she got into her and another girl pushing each other over $8 at a Dunkin' Donuts. It's supposed to be private under the law. It's protected under privilege. It's not supposed to be disclosed anywhere. And yet that's what they keep regurgitating. And when Jason Thomas made the argument with me on Monday, the government's own lawyer, when we were done, after saying she's not a criminal illegal alien, that she's not a danger to society, that she's not a flight risk, the government's lawyer said 2 words: I stipulate. That means factually and legally, the DHS lawyer, their spokesperson in court, agreed with everything we said. And then after, they have another press release calling her yet another criminal illegal alien, claiming that the Joe Biden judge, let her out of jail. But, Barack Hussein Obama is who started these removal proceedings, not Donald Trump. So since he has such a problem with everything Obama did, maybe you should stop these proceedings and dismiss him entirely, because this is ridiculous. They put her on an ankle monitor. They treat her like she's a sex offender. And then we showed up at 8 a.m. Friday morning threatening to sue them yet again for the illegal, brazen behavior. And then they take the GPS monitor off 20 minutes later.
Bruna, you were sent to a notorious facility far from your son, all the way down in Louisiana. What were those days like for you? What did you see and experience inside?
I wouldn't believe it if I didn't see it with my own 2 eyes, if I didn't hear it with my own 2 ears. There are women in there that are pregnant. There are women in there that need a root canal, and they've been seeking medical attention for weeks. This isn't a day or a couple of hours. It is horrifying to experience something like that, because the only thing that I can think of is I'm so lucky that I'm healthy and I don't have any problems. I'm not diabetic, because those women, they go to medical, they try to seek medical assistance, and they're there for hours. That's even if they get treated. It's horrifying. It's freezing cold in there. And my mom said, well, how is it cold, honey? You're in South Louisiana. I'm like, outside it may be warm. I'm not sure. We get to go out for a brief period and getting to and from the cafeteria area. But inside it is literally freezing. They make you order a sweater that takes 5 to 7 days for it to come. And then if it doesn't come, you have to wait again and put an order in. So it's just inhumane, it's cruel. I can't understand how people don't see that this is a problem, especially because I've been a law-abiding citizen my entire life. My mom has worked at a cleaning business her entire life to help me pay my legal bills because, as I'm sure you know, they're not cheap by any means. So living in flight or fight mode for this long, 27 years, you know, and then being wrongfully accused of something without a shred of proof is just insane to me.
The family of your sister-in-law, Carolyn Levitt, they've painted you out to be somewhat of a deadbeat mother, someone who doesn't spend much time with her son, who they haven't seen in quite a while. Is there any truth to that?
There is no truth to that. Is it true that they do paint me out to be that way? Of course, yeah. They try to keep me, you know, locked up in some kind of closet, you know, which is their narrative. You know, everyone's entitled to their own opinion. I don't lose sleep at night over it. You know, I've made my peace with that. But for them to say those things and have my son think those things is something I would never do to them, you know? So we have 50% custody. I mean, I have thousands of pictures and videos of Michael and I together, of us going to Dave & Buster's or going to Sky Zone, you know, and his friends tagging along. It's funny because it's never a problem when I'm bringing the boys, you know, to play or to go places or to go to a Patriots game or, you know, sitting floor seats at the Celtics games, you know what I mean? Like, it's cool when I do those things so I can give them a break, you know? And now I can't wrap my head around why anyone would make up these lies.
Almost as if they don't know who you are. Do you believe that the Levitt family had something to do with your detention and attempted deportation?
I didn't think so when I first got in there. I didn't think so, but the more that I look at all of the coincidence, you know, like how they knew that I was leaving to pick up Michael from school, how they knew my address. My address is not, nobody knows my address. My mother hasn't been to where I live for this exact reason. I go to her house just to keep her, you know, have her mind be at ease pretty much. So the vehicle that I was driving was not registered under my name. That apartment lease is not under my name. So it leads me to believe, how can someone know where I am, exactly where I'm going? You know, it just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
what about the traffic stop caught your attention?
Well, at first, you know, I was talking to, you know, Bruna about what had happened. And then TMZ leaked the video, and it looks like an undercover drug buy where the police just go in and swarm in unmarked vehicles and arrest somebody. It looks similar to, like, you know, the horrific thing you saw in Providence yesterday, you know, with the shooting. You see all these, like, agents running around with guns and whatnot. So she's pulling her vehicle forward, and it looks like a car is driving in, possibly accidentally, in her way, and she goes to back up, and then she's just barricaded by 5 vehicles. They all get out. Most of them have masks over their faces. But in talking to Bruna, she said at first they asked her for her driver's license. And then when she was trying to get it, somebody says, "Are you Bruna?" So they obviously know who.
They knew who they were looking for.
They're looking for Bruna. It wasn't an accident. How would they know her name if it's a random traffic stop? And then just seeing that video, the sequence of it all, she asked to see a warrant. They never gave her one. Then they manufacture a warrant when she's in Vermont, like 4 hours later. Like, none of it added up. At first, we thought it was happenstance, but I don't believe it is. Somebody else, one of her friends, got pulled over 2 days earlier, and they asked that person if she was Bruna. She looks similar, you know, with a hoodie on. You know, one of her mom's coworkers got pulled over. So they were clearly looking for somebody named Bruna for several days. And then they, not only did they arrest her, they took her to a processing facility in Vermont. Somebody made a comment like, "Oh, more businesses coming in." And that's, you know, that's the seedy narrative here, is they're treating women like their business. There's no beds in Massachusetts for a woman in ICE detention, and yet all of my clients say, if you don't sue right away, they wind up down south in a for-profit prison.
They said that.
Yeah.
Verbatim.
They didn't think she spoke English.
Yeah, she didn't know that I spoke English. So when I laughed, the guy goes, "Oh, she speaks English." And I said, and several other languages as well. But it's just, it's disturbing that someone can find humor when this is the worst day of my life. You know, I've never been arrested. I've never been in handcuffs. So for someone to say that as if it's just a joke is cruel.
And then the immigration judge lets her on the minimum amount of bond at all, $1,500. And then supposedly it's a Joe Biden judge that lets her out of jail when their own lawyer agrees to it. And then ICE illegally puts an ankle monitor on her. That's not part of what the judge issued. She said $1,500. That was it, the minimum. You pay money and you're free. Not you checking at ICE, have to have an ankle monitor, another for-profit device that they're charging taxpayers for. It's absolutely unfounded, unparalleled, unconstitutional behavior. We see it. I see it happen to her. I've seen it happen to numerous other clients. And it's just a common theme is everyone is labeled a criminal or an illegal alien. Most of the time it's hardly ever true. And yet the government's profiteering off the hard-working backs of non-citizens by putting them in these for-profit hellholes.
Bruno, you were in the process of trying to get a green card, of making your citizenship permanent the correct way here in the United States. Do you still believe in this country and its promise after what you've now been through?
Well, there's a quote that I live by, rivers don't rush, yet they form mountains. Patience is the key, but 27 years, the system is so broken, it's embarrassing. I have cousins that want to visit America, and I advise them to stay home and finish their studies. And, because to come in, and I didn't come in illegally, I came in with a visa. This country welcomed me with open arms because the mission was just for me to come and meet my sister and then go back with my grandmother and start school until my parents could pack up and move home. So it's very misleading when they say, okay, just pay this fee, pay that. And now my parents have easily spent $250,000 throughout this 27 years. And that's, through a lot of referrals. We own a cleaning business, so people have tried to help, but there's just, the system is broken. They ask you to do something, you do it. And then if you don't, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. It's very hard to understand what they want from you.
With our final moments, do you have a message to the Levitt family?
Yes, I want to see my son. I want to see Michael. I want Michael to live with me, obviously, 100% of the time. That's never been a question, but I do know that, a boy does need his father. And I have given him that opportunity to be in his life, but I want to see my son as soon as possible, like today. That's my message to them.
Bruna Ferreira, Todd Pomerleau, thank you both so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
We appreciate it.
New today as controversy swirls around the House Democrats' release of photos of powerful men alongside convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Americans are dissatisfied with the level of transparency from the Trump administration around Epstein. According to an NBC News poll out today, 71% somewhat or strongly disapprove of why the Trump administration has handled, the Trump administration has handled the Epstein files. 29% approve. But come Friday, the Epstein Files Transparency Act will kick in, and the Department of Justice will be forced to publicly disclose its Epstein-related records. Joining me now, Mimi Rocah, former Assistant U.S. Attorney in the Southern District of New York and former Westchester County DA. Mimi, welcome. Always good to see you. So it was a hard-fought political fight to force the DOJ to release the Epstein files, but what can we expect to see? What do they have in their possession, and how much of it might be redacted for the public?
Hi, Alex. Look, there's a lot in DOJ's possession, undoubtedly. How much of it will be redacted is obviously a little hard to predict, but I do think we should set expectations a little bit. And I don't think that people should expect a smoking gun, right? Because every investigation I was involved in, there were very rarely smoking guns. It's just not how these kind of investigations work. That doesn't mean there won't be things in there that are interesting or incriminating of certain people. But if there were really, truly a smoking gun, then other people probably would have been charged with crimes. What's going to come out now are things that really are unprecedented, which are, DOJ does not usually release, reports, statements, evidence about people who aren't charged with crimes. It's actually for good reason, because we don't usually want to tarnish people who are not going to be actually charged with the crime. But here, because of what the victims wanted, because of the unusual circumstances, we will be seeing this sort of great pool, if you will, of evidence, of statements, some of which wouldn't be admissible in a courtroom, but we are going to see it. And so I hope that we're given the opportunity as reporters like you, who are thoughtful, as commentators, to give context to what does come out, because it's different than when you see it in a courtroom with evidentiary rules. There's going to need to be a lot of context on this.
So you're saying, you have to be careful. You don't want to have implication by association of any nefarious doing, right? But Friday's deadline, is it more to be looked at from a legal perspective, or is this simply about transparency?
I don't think it's to be looked at from the legal perspective, to be honest. I think we are past the point. I'm not saying there's no possible investigations or criminal cases, probably along, if there were going to be any, it would be along the lines of financial cases, who was supporting the operation, things like that. But we're really talking about the court of public opinion now. And that's an important court to be in, but it is a very different kind of court than a courtroom where rules apply and, all kinds of evidentiary sort of hurdles. I mean, here they're, presumably, and we won't really know what they're not letting out, because it is Pam Bondi who is very self-interested in this. I mean, we can't forget that either. Pam Bondi is made very clear that her number one priority is not doing justice at the Department of Justice, but protecting Donald Trump. I mean, she's really left little other way to put it than that. And so she's the one in control. We won't know what they're not releasing. We won't know what has been redacted that we can't see, that maybe shouldn't have been redacted. So there's still a lot of hurdles here. But I do want to just bring it back quickly to the survivors who do want this. And that is hugely important, because if they didn't, I think we would be in a very different place. I would be saying, don't release it. But remember that for the survivors, every single piece that comes out, every photograph that the Democrats release is triggering for them. And, it may not mean a lot to the public, or they may not understand what they're seeing, but it is a lot for the survivors each and every time. And so I hope that we can try to do this in a more thoughtful way than, frankly, the Democrats have been doing with the drip, drip, drip of photographs. It needs to come out with some context. It needs to come out. It should be shown to the survivors first. They shouldn't be seeing it on the news for the first time. That would be my way, as someone who's worked with survivors, that I would want to do it. I don't know that anyone's going to do it that way.
Okay, but it is worth listening to and making the suggestion. Mimi Rocah, thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Okay, we got a lot of stuff going on today. We're following the breaking news stories out of Australia and out of Providence, Rhode Island. But I want to shift for a moment to another important story, the Trump administration's continued crackdown on immigration in America. Recently, President Trump has turned his ire toward the Somali community, particularly those in Minneapolis and the city of in Minnesota and the city of Minneapolis. Beyond targeting Somali Americans broadly, he's aimed many of his attacks directly at the Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, who is a Somali refugee herself. This morning, she published an exclusive op-ed for MS Now titled, "Trump is Weaponizing Fear Against Me and Other Immigrants." She described several incidents involving federal agents in Minneapolis, including an aggressive arrest of a Somali man who was a U.S. citizen, which he told agents at the time of his arrest. You can hear the man in the video yelling, "I have an ID," and bystanders asking the man's name. Watch.
I have my ID. I have my ID. What's your name? 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 You can't do that. What's your name?
Congresswoman Omar wrote in her piece that, quote, "This is not immigration enforcement, it's collective punishment. It's state-sanctioned racial profiling used as a tool of political intimidation." But she also explained something that Trump and his ilk don't seem to understand. Quote, "Immigrants love this country deeply. We love democracy in the way that only those who have lived without it can. We cherish the rule of law, the promise of due process, and the idea that our diversity is a strength, not a threat. Somali Minnesotans will not be intimidated into silence. Trump will never be able to steal the American dream from us because so many of us have fought like hell to have a chance at it. We will not surrender the beautiful promise of a nation that belongs to all of us, end quote. Joining me now is the Democratic Congresswoman for Minnesota, Ilhan Omar. Representative Omar, thank you for being here. Those words that you wrote, obviously they resonate with me as an immigrant. You and I both spent time as children in Kenya. When you go to Minneapolis, which I've been to many times, as you know, and you see Somalis on the street, there's no way to know whether they're immigrants or American citizens, or they just got here, or they're tourists, or they're visa holders. Like, you just don't know. They're integrated into society.
They certainly are. And what, we know statistically is that nearly 100% of them are U.S. citizens or permanent residents. And so it is clear that this operation that was mobilized is only mobilized to terrorize a whole community and to make them feel like they are less American than everyone else. The young man that you showed the video of was born in the United States. Many of the people that they have picked up, that they've detained, handcuffed, manhandled, have been citizens who were born here. Nearly 60% of Somali Minnesotans are born U.S. citizens. And so this operation, if it was about safety, if it was about finding the worst of the worst, there is a different way that they would have carried out, not by going into establishments that are owned by Somali Minnesotans, not by going to masjids or mosques, not by going into neighborhoods that we frequent. This is clearly racial profiling, ethnic profiling, and it's to intimidate us. But Somalis are resilient. We've been through a lot. We have overcome a lot, and we're not easily intimidated or easily bullied. We know what our rights are. The president gets upset that I tell him that he needs to abide by the Constitution. It's because that Constitution means a lot to us. We're people who've experienced what it means to have rights stripped from you. And so we cling on to the fact that we are protected by the Constitution.
We love it. Right? I mean, you're an immigrant to this country. You come here. When you get your citizenship, in my case, I did it in a courtroom, so you couldn't take a cell phone. So, they give you a little pocket constitution. I read it 3 times. And I thought, how wonderful. I mean, this is what I'm going to be part of now. And this is across the board for immigrants in this country. The proportion of people
stay
who
up
immigrate
all night in excitement.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
But by the way, they're pulling people out of their immigration lines right now. So it doesn't actually matter whether you, they call them, are illegal or not. People who are in the process, whether you're getting your citizenship or you're getting your H-1B or you're getting your green card or you're showing up for your regular hearings, it doesn't matter. Like, it just doesn't matter. If you look like you might not be an American citizen, you can be targeted.
Yeah, I mean, and their whole immigration argument falls apart when they say they want to go after people who are not in this country, who are not documented immigrants in this country, or when they say they want to get rid of criminals and go after the worst of the worst, because they are literally in courtrooms. Arresting people who are going through the legal process and showing up for their hearings. They're canceling citizenship celebrations, and so it's insane. And everybody can see what they're doing.
One of the things that I think is fascinating, again, Somalis in Minnesota is a good story because they're everywhere. They're all over the place. Do you have to carry your ID? Because the law does not require citizens to carry their identification to prove that they are citizens. But if you're just going to target everybody who looks like they might be Somali, then 100% of Somali Minnesotans are in danger of being detained.
Yeah, I mean, when the president got elected, a lot of people in the Somali community here in Minnesota understood that he wasn't only going to go after undocumented immigrants or people who committed crimes, that he was going to come after all of us, whether we immigrated here and became citizens, or whether you are born to somebody who was an immigrant in your first generation. And so people like my son ordered their passport IDs and carry their passport IDs with them, the same as the young man. You know, he was carrying his passport ID. The ID that he's describing is not a driver license, it's a passport ID. There are a lot of people who are walking around with their actual passports. I carry my passport around. And so it is both out of the fear of being detained, as they did to one of my constituents who's a resident of Edina, who they detained for 24 hours until her parents and relatives could present her passport. So people are afraid of that. They don't want to get detained. But also, you don't want to be harassed. You don't want to be manhandled. And you just want that interaction to go as smoothly as it can by you showing them that you are an American citizen.
What a thing. I mean, this is not a country where citizens are required to show identification. It's a fact that is not a requirement, a proof of citizenship, and yet that has to happen. I never know when Donald Trump takes a shot at you, pretty racist usually, called you garbage the other day and told you to get the hell out. I never know whether to sort of laugh that off and say, well, it's Trump being Trump and you don't get affected by it all that much, or to say, that's kind of crazy that the President of the United States is saying this about a U.S. citizen who is an elected representative in Congress. How should I think about this?
I think all of the above. It is a wild thing. It's easily mockable. It is embarrassing that the president is willing to denigrate the presidency in such a matter. It is also, dangerous and creepy to have this level of obsession on someone like me, who's just a member of Congress.
I want to ask you very quickly before we go. We are following these shootings in Australia and in Rhode Island. There was a shooting in your district not that long ago, a mass shooting. This is yet another bad day for America.
Yeah, I mean, we are still recovering from the shooting at Annunciation Church. It is a tragedy that this has become a normal occurrence, not just in the United States, but now seeing it in Australia, who's worked really hard to create gun prevention laws to prevent the kind of tragedy that took place today.
Thank you for your time this morning. Good to see you again. The Democratic Congresswoman for Minnesota, Ilhan Omar. All right, we're continuing.
From the people who brought you Project 2025, prepare yourself for 2026. The Heritage Foundation's policy priorities are out for next year, and they are building on what the Trump administration has already achieved. The conservative movement is calling it the golden age of choice.
The golden age is a choice. It's a choice to prioritize families and empower local communities.
A choice to find dignity in prosperous and honorable work.
A choice to prioritize our nation's safety, protecting our homeland and standing strong against foreign threats.
Joining me now, David Graham, staff writer for The Atlantic and author of The Project, How Project 2025 is Reshaping America. David, welcome. Good to have you on the show here. So next year's wish list, which was originally released in March, it's not quite the 900-page document that Project 2025 was, but how do their plans build on what they've achieved thus far?
Well, there's a sort of direct connection between a lot of these things, whether it's taking on China, whether it's putting family first, drilling for oil and gas. These are the same sort of priorities we see in Project 2025, and the same things we've seen the administration pursue. I think maybe the most interesting things here are the places where there's a little bit of air between what the Trump administration has actually done and what the Heritage Foundation is looking for. And I think of something like fighting big tech. That was a priority for Project 2025, and instead Trump has sort of welcomed big tech with open arms and put Silicon Valley at the center of his administration.
So Russell Vought, a lead architect of Project 2025, now inside the administration as the Office of Management and Budget Director. And here he is last week. Listen with me.
Political capital is not our scarcest resource. You can always build it. Time is our scarcest resource. And so that's why we are going at it with everything we've got and trying to bulldoze bureaucracy where it exists.
Time is our scarcest resource. So how effective has Vought been carrying out his policy priorities? And what does this foreshadow about his vision for next year?
You know, one of the animating ideas behind Project 2025 was that if the right wanted to get things done, they needed to do it really fast. And I think that has a lot to do with the kind of blitzkrieg approach the Trump administration has taken, moving very quickly to shutter agencies, lay people off, attack existing programs, before really anybody has a chance to react to that, whether that's Republicans or Democrats or the courts. I think that's one reason why they've managed to enact so much of Project 2025. And I think it makes sense that Vought would be saying the same thing now. They also know the midterms are bearing down on them. They can read the polls as well as anybody, and they see that there's a good chance they're going to lose control of at least the House. And so they want to make as much progress as they can before those elections.
David, you wrote this week about the president showing signs that he has lost his physical stamina to be president. And considering these concerns, will the rest of his term be as effective carrying out his policy priorities? I mean, is he the only one who can do it? Or is he surrounded by people he can effectively say to them, I want this done, so go do it, and they will without blinking?
I mean, part of the idea of Project 2025, maybe ironically, is to kind of build a right-wing deep state. So Trump was essential for winning the office and for starting off in the way that he did and sort of bullying Congress into submission. But one thing they wanted to do was to get people in positions of power, Russell Vought being one, but really even more in lower positions of power, appointments throughout the government of positions we don't think about, who can then keep enacting these things. And it's a long-term project for them, not just for the Trump administration. So now that Trump has put them in positions of power, they almost don't need him as much, and they can kind of run on their own.
Okay, a sobering thought. David Graham, thank you so much for sharing all of it with us. Appreciate that.